Hello and welcome to season 2, episode 66 of Paranormal NL podcast on Spotify. I'm your host, Jen. Now we're coming up to the big USA Memorial Day weekend, folks. Do you have your campfire barbecue and spooky stories ready? We want to send out a few prayers to all the folks in the USA dealing with all the horrific tornado and flooding weather lately. But Paranormal NL Podcast is a place where the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada, and anywhere else in the world can share their paranormal experiences. PNL Podcast believes in supporting people, places, and things to promote paranormal tourism and paranormal networking all over the world. A big thank you again to all of the PNL alumni, guests from season 1 and 2, and of course our fans. We want to hear your stories. Do you have any paranormal, supernatural, unexplained ghosts, cryptid creatures, or tales of the weird you'd like to share as a guest on my PNL podcast? Reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, or Gmail. After your episode, you'll become part of the PNL Podcast Alumni Network. Don't forget, you can also watch and listen with your smart TV for free on the Spotify app. Head on over to Facebook and join us on the Facebook group called Paranormal NL Podcast. You can find new and upcoming episodes in the featured section there in the group. We're listening to our fans. PNL Podcast is now on Instagram and coming soon on YouTube too. You can also find merch on TeePublic. Now, let's get on with the show. Tonight, I have on the line with me from East Tennessee, we have Ghost Girl Gena. Welcome, Gena.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes, we're really glad to have you on the show here today. What's the weather like down in East Tennessee today?
It has been gorgeous today.
Yeah?
Beautiful sunny weather, right about 80, but I think storms are coming just in time to ruin the weekend.
Oh, no, I hope not. Well, at least y'all don't have the fog and 4-degree weather we've been having over here in Newfoundland and even snow
Oh,
in
wow.
Labrador. So, yeah, so let's tell us a little bit more about Ghost Girl and yourself, Gena.
Sure. I have been a fan of the paranormal and all things spooky since I was a little girl, I guess. I would, read anything I could find on ghosts and scary movies, and I'd be the one at slumber parties bringing in the Ouija board going, let's talk to dead people. So I have always had an interest in things like that, since a very young age. And then I guess it was early 20s, which has been a long time ago. I actually had an experience, saw my first, I guess, shadow figure, and which really sparked that interest. And then it was about 10 or 11 years ago when I realized that, hey, people actually, the ghost hunting shows were all becoming popular. And I was like, people actually do this. And, there are locations you can go to actually spend the night at, and there's equipment, and there's all of this. So I've been investigating formally, I guess you could say, for about 10 or 11 years now.
That's awesome, Gena. So tell us more about your shadow figure that you saw.
It was, and I didn't realize that there was a name for it until much later. But the Hat Man, which is, I guess, probably the most famous of the shadow figures. And I had been at a friend's house, and this was in '94, I guess, which is when we had a notorious huge blizzard down here. And so that was clearing up, and there was still snow on the ground outside. And I had fallen asleep in their living room. Like I said, we'd been at a friend's house watching movies, and I fell asleep on one end of their sectional and kind of near where the big picture window with the light coming in. And I woke up sometime in the middle of the night, and that man was standing in the corner. I could just see the dark shadow. I could see like a hat, a fedora type look, and a long coat, and he was moving his hand. And it didn't scare me because I thought, okay, I am dreaming. So I'm just sitting there staring and blinking, trying to wake myself up. and he wouldn't go away. And I knew that there was another friend that was on the other end of this big sectional that I couldn't see because it was dark on that side. And so I started, you know, yelling at him, and they're still watching this man in the corner, and there was no answer, and this guy was still moving his hand. It kind of reminded me of, have you seen the Freddy Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger movies with his
Oh,
big,
no.
with the hand? I mean, it wasn't, but just with the hat and the movement of the hands, like he was, I don't know, beckoning or whatever. And I finally turned to look into that dark corner and yelled, at the friend over there. I was like, Charles. And when he answered, he's like, what? And I turned back and he was gone. And I just like, Freddy Krueger is in the corner. And, and he's like, well, don't bring me in your nightmare. But yeah, that was something that just blew my mind that night, and that really stuck with me. That was the first thing that I actually saw that I couldn't explain that. I knew I wasn't asleep. So,
Yeah, Gina, I've had a
but
lot of people on the show talk about Headman. And believe it or
mhm.
not, a lot of people see him.
That is, I didn't realize that there was a name for it, and just happened upon an article 5 or 6 years ago, I guess, that somebody had posted, and with a picture, and I was like, hey, I know him. But yeah, it was a really, like I said, it wasn't scary at the time, but it was just, I guess, astonishing.
Yeah, right. Like
And
when you have your own experience, and it kind of makes it real, doesn't it?
it makes it real. And but the things like that still, even though I'm out there, several times a month looking for things like this, when it does happen, is still so amazing.
So tell me a
You
little bit
know,
more about yourself and your logo. My gosh, you're a very popular logo. You got over 750 people looking at your I call it the teaser over on the featured page there.
I no, I was actually, I've been on a couple of different paranormal teams, and was with a team that we started for about 3 years, and just decided back at the end of last year that we were kind of going in different directions, and I kind of decided to go solo, and because having a team together, it's hard to keep everybody doing the same things, and you know
Right, different
everybody has
schedules and lives, right?
different schedules, things that this person's doing this and I'm doing this, and we want to go investigate. Well, if you go without me, I'm going to be mad, but I can't go because I have this. So it, I kind of went solo, and I have some great friends that I do a lot of things with. But if I have something going on and I can't go, I know they're not going to be mad at me. So I kind of trying to keep it that way. That way I can do what I want when I want, and still support all of my friends and everything. But so yeah, Ghost Girl was always a password for me on, in some shape or form. And so I thought, well, I need a logo or something, Ghost Girl. And so I kind of started an additional Facebook page for Ghost Girl, and a local guy actually came up with that logo. He said, like, the pinup thing is kind of really popular right now. And now the first version of her, she had like fishnets, and that ghost cape was a little bit shorter. And I was like, I'm not in my 20s anymore. I cannot pull that off. So we're gonna have to bring it a little bit longer. So,
Yeah, yeah, he did some great art. He's one of your local guys doing digital art, hey?
hmm yeah, we kind of, I gave him the idea, and a good friend of mine has some tattoos that are like that. She likes the pinup stuff, so she's got a pinup ghost, and I was like, okay, let's play off of that. And so he created it off of that, and so that's, yeah, I like it. I love her. I think
Yeah,
it's a really cute.
it's really cute logo. Well, tell us more about what you do and maybe some of your favorite things that that you'd like to talk about?
Okay, well, I try to get out at least once or twice a month to investigate at some different locations. Just came from this weekend from a huge location here in West Virginia, and it's a Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum,
Oh,
and
that's a good one. Yeah.
that is, yes, it's huge, and it was actually the first place that I investigated formally. That was like what a friend of mine calls pay per boo, basically the locations that where you pay to come in and investigate. There has been, more than 20,000 deaths in that location in the history. I love the history behind the location. So um, we went there again and spent the night there, and oh, I'd love to live closer. So that's one of my favorite places to go. I've been about, I guess, 5 times in the last 10 years.
Did you get any hits
But
over there at the when you were at that location?
we did this time. We had some pretty neat. We had some shadow figure action. I've not gone over the videos yet. I've got a couple of different cameras, and things to go over. Hours of video. That's the hard part.
It is,
Is
isn't it?
having to
And every time you go
just.
back and look, it's almost like you see something else, right?
And that's that's the fun part. And I have a regular job too, so
Mm-hmm.
it's hard, and I said it takes longer to recover from these trips and stuff. Now that I'm older, it was easier 10 years ago, but yeah, I still have to go through all that. So we had some pretty neat things. This location is never disappoints, and but I've done a lot of residential in the past. I've not done anything in a while um, for anybody. A friend of mine has a location. It's about an hour from me, which is it's an old farmhouse with a lot of history, and it's not abandoned, but it is. I mean, she knows the owners, and they allow us in there. And that was, I guess, we went for the first time a couple of months ago, and investigating there and recording there was amazing because it was like a whole new thing. It was, nobody's ever really been there. There's so much history, and I love to try to uncover that history and see if we can find out some things that match up, with who lived there, with what happened. And so that kind of awakened that all over for me again to be able to go into some place new like that
That yeah, that
nobody's
part
really
is
been in.
always fun, isn't it, when you can tie it all together?
Exactly. And got a big trip coming up in about 3 weeks. I have, like I said, a group of friends with Mid 10 Paranormal. They're in Middle Tennessee, and we're doing a week long trip. And we're going to Iowa and Kansas and I think Ohio. There's like 6 locations in 7 days. I think that we're going to go to. So
That sounds fun. That's some good
I'm
paranormal tourism right there.
it is, and we did one last year too, a week long thing, and we just rent a big passenger van, like a 15 passenger, I think is what we rented. And there was only 6 of us, but we like filled that thing up with all the equipment and luggage and stuff. But we just travel and hit one after the other,
I was gonna
and
say,
so
how does it work when you travel with another team like that? Do you guys all share your equipment, and then at the end you kind of help each other, kind of comb through all the videos and
we all have a lot of the same equipment. So on some of these trips, we try to tone it down a little bit, and it's like, okay, I know you've got this, you're going to bring yours, and then I'll bring my, and so we don't have quite as much. But yeah, we have a lot, and we have our own cameras and everything too. So we usually go through our own evidence, and a lot of times if we're in the same room when we're filming something, we'll see, hey, did you catch this on yours? Do you hear this? Do you, so it works out pretty well. And I have, of course, my husband is not, he believes in it, but he's supportive, but he doesn't often go on these things with me. He did go on the big one last year. We did New York and Pennsylvania. And so that was really a lot of fun. And I have a daughter who's 16 who goes a lot with me, when she can. So they're actually going on the big trip west. So
That should
I'm
be fun.
excited
Yeah.
to share this with them. Yeah. So it's really, like I said, he puts up with it and let me do all of this. So I love to have him with me occasionally.
Did you have any other experiences that you want to share that you've had, or?
Oh gosh, there's a lot. Some of the most interesting places, which I've actually, where I live now here in East Tennessee, the house that we moved from was haunted. And it was never anything that was really negative. It was a large 2-story house, and it wasn't extremely old, but it kind of had that feel to it. So I decorated with a lot of antiques. And I started seeing things right after I moved in, I guess. But there was a lot of windows and a lot of angles to the house. So I always kind of thought, well, that's, a reflection from a window and another window. And, I kind of wrote all that off. And then I divorced and started seeing my husband. And after he'd been coming around for a while and we were talking about marriage, I said, well, maybe we should sell the house and downsize, a little bit. And he's like, yeah, it's haunted anyway. And I was like, okay, what?
So he had experiences and never told you?
Yeah. And he said, I'm always seeing stuff out of the corner of my eye. And I was like, okay, I have too, but I've kind of written that off. And he said, well, no, I was in the bathroom, I was shaving, and he said, I heard, I saw you walk behind me into the walk-in closet, in the mirror. I was shaving in the mirror and you walked behind me. And he said, so I talked to you and you didn't answer. He said, so I looked in there and, you weren't in there and there's windows. He said, your car's not in the driveway. He said, but yet you walked behind me. And we just had all kinds of strange things like
That
that.
is weird.
There
So
was,
he saw a doppelganger of you.
yeah, that was a little unnerving.
Yeah.
And we had a lamp turn over once in the middle of the night onto the bed, a big, heavy floor lamp, which didn't make any sense. And there was always footsteps, upstairs whenever everybody was downstairs. I mean, distinct, literally, dum dum, And I've had the slam, I was doing dishes. I heard car pull in the driveway, the dog barking, screen door slammed, heard footsteps going, across the formal living room up the stairs. And I thought, well, he didn't even speak. And when I went and looked, he wasn't home. And so I called and like, hey, did you just come home for some reason and leave again? And he's like, no, I'm about 10 minutes away. Why? I was just like, never mind. But
Yeah, that's
found out.
spooky.
So I never investigated my own house. I had the first team I was with did investigate. Didn't find a whole lot. I heard from a neighbor that a former person that lived there before, their elderly parents lived with them, and one of them had passed away. So I never knew who, who it was in there. When we did move, I did sage the house and ask it to please leave, or at the very least, just let this house sell. So I don't know if the new owners had any experience. that's been, and it's actually right next door to me, or kind of behind my house now. But it is on the market again. So
Oh, really?
it
Well,
is. They've got it. They just put it up for sale again. So I don't know. Maybe my buddy is still down there.
have you had any activity at the current house you're in?
Not really. And which is really odd because there was two deaths in this house within a year before we bought it, which is kind of how it became available at the right time, that that we were looking. But and so I'm surprised my husband was agreeable, to moving up here, because we were downsizing, but I wanted to stay, in the same neighborhood, and I thought this is perfect. But no, I've never really had anything major that's happened here.
That's a
My
good thing.
husband has had.
Yeah, I like to ask because I always think about attachments, because you're at so many different locations. Maybe something hitched a ride home versus something
Yeah.
in your house. That's why I asked, is it still going on at the house you're at now? But no, right?
No, it hasn't, and that's what my husband said. I love you. If you ever bring something home, and I was like, well, whatever was down there before I was. So,
Yeah.
and then we actually had a car door open by itself down there that we caught. We've got security cameras that we never really look at unless something happens. And I had come home from work, and he was out of town, and one of his contractors' vehicles was in the driveway, and the door was open. And I thought, oh no, someone has, broken into his vehicle. And so I called my husband, and I was like, hey, his door's open. And he said, oh, check and see if, I think he had a weapon behind the seat or something. And I was like, oh, it was still there. I'm closing it, I'm locking it. So I went in and checked the cameras and literally watched that door open by itself.
Oh my
And
gosh.
my husband's like, you go all over the country, looking for ghosts, and it's right here in our driveway. But so
Was
I,
that
I miss the old
outside in
house.
the garage or inside the
It
house
was
in the garage?
beside the house in the driveway. It
Okay.
was literally outside, and I watched all the other cameras. There was no real wind or anything that day, so it was really really odd.
Now you talked about sage earlier. Did you sage that house while you were in it?
Not until we get ready to leave. I
Oh.
didn't, because we never felt threatened
Mm-hmm.
in any way.
It was
Um,
benevolent, maybe a friendly ghost.
yeah, and I figured if it was one of the former, um, people that lived there, it was an elderly person. So as long as it's not bothering me, I'm gonna, we can coexist.
Right? Yeah.
So I never really, had any. I just wanted to sell the house, and move and downsize. And but yeah, so I think they're all around us, and we just coexist.
Yeah, I kind of think that too, right? I mean, you get a lot of people talking about having experiences with different places where, history does have something have happened there, but it doesn't always have to be bad. It can be good, and you can, like you said, you can coexist alongside of them.
Exactly. I mean, they were. I guess this was their place before it was mine. So as long as we can peacefully exist and get along, then I'm fine with that. And I'm not. And everybody lately is a medium or an empath or a psychic, and everybody says, what is your gift? Mine is tolerance for for all the craziness out there. Um, so I'm not one of these people that does, everywhere I go, I see dead people. I'm just not, and I don't claim to be. That's why when something does happen, and I am fortunate enough to be able to see it, then that is just amazing to me. And that's just kind of those little things, you sit for hours at night with all your equipment, hoping for some little something to happen. And that just keeps you excited and coming back for more.
Right, indeed. Yeah, it is interesting. And like you said, you hear a lot of people with gifts and stuff like that. But I mean, when you think about the X Files, the Scully and the Mulder, I guess, we're kind of similar in that way. We believe, but a little bit skeptic, right?
Yeah, I think you have to be. And I am, my first rule of thumb is debunk, because
Yes. Yeah.
not everything is paranormal. I feel like 95% of it or whatever is not. And so we sit down and go through everything and try to figure out, what made this happen.
Yeah, I love the
And
investigative part of it too. That's the fun part, right? Trying to figure out what
yeah,
happened, what just happened.
yeah, and it's not always scientific. And usually the things that you do actually get to see, you don't get, your camera's not handy, or you might catch a shadow figure on your camera, and that's amazing amount of luck there. And I remember last summer when we did our big trip north. We did, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. We did Pennhurst Asylum in Pennsylvania, and we did New York, and we were up in three different places in New York, and we were at the Greystone Manor, which is about 30 minutes or so from Niagara Falls. It's in Niagara County, and it's a beautiful old home, and there's so much history there also, and a lot of death. And but it's a beautiful location, and it's a haunted bed and breakfast. And we were there middle of the day. God, this was the last stop on the on the tour of last year. So, we were exhausted, and she was out showing us the grounds, and there had been an old blacksmith shop, and she was just telling us about, there's a cemetery here, there's unmarked graves in this area. And we were, looking out, and I looked out over the field, and I think she had just planted something out there, but it was, bare field, and there was a man walking across the field, and he walked behind. There was like some trees that were between us and the field, and he walked behind there, and I could see him walking between the trees, and then he just kind of disappeared. I mean, and this was a solid man. And I turned and looked back because I thought her husband might have been out in the field, because I'd just seen him at the house, and he was still up near the back of the house there. And I was like, Heather Madison, she owns it, and she actually is a psychic medium. And I was like, is there a man in your field? And she said, no, there shouldn't be. Why? Did you see something? And I said, yeah, I did. I said, he had on a white shirt, and he just walked across the field. And she said, in dark pants. And I was like, yeah. And she said, yeah, I used to see him all the time. And my mind was just blown, and I was so excited. I got to see something. I got to see this, and it looked so real.
I
It was a
love it.
solid.
Love it when you see stuff like that. Well, we're coming up on Ghost Girl Hour. We're 1 minute out before the 30. Do you want to give a shout out to all your socials and where people can find you, Gena?
Absolutely. I'm on Facebook as Ghost Girl, or you can also find my personal account. It's Gena Kinsler Carmen on there. I'm also on Instagram as Ghost Girl, and I'm on TikTok as Ghost Girl. So all those places, and YouTube. Just started building the YouTube up, so that is also Ghost Girl.
Okay, perfect. I'll go ahead and put your links up if I can find them and add it to the description on Spotify here, folks. Make sure you follow Gena, Ghost Girl. You won't be disappointed. Okay, folks, stay spooky.